Dear Daily News Report viewers, after watching this video, you can find previous videos by clicking on the top right button. We recommend watching, subscribing, and sharing. Thanks in advance. What we are witnessing all over the country right now is incredibly sad. It would be great to see after George Floyd's tragic death that the whole nation united behind the effort to make our society less violent, fairer, and more peaceful. Instead, we saw an enormous explosion of violence and lawlessness that was unlikely to end anytime soon. After the big city, the violent crime rates in the big city are increasing, and the weekend of July the 4th was especially bad. During the holiday weekend, at least 41 people were armed in New York, and this trend continues in the first half of 2020. According to the figures released by the New York Police Department, for the first 6 months of this year, there were 176 murders, an increase of 23% on the 143 killed during the same period last year. The number of shooting victims has gone up 51% to 616 this year. In June alone, there were 250 shootings compared to 97 in the same month last year. Month on month, burglaries are up 119%. Car thefts up 48%. Many blame New York's liberal mayor, Bill de Blasio, who has slashed police funding by $1 billion, ended the NYPD's controversial stop and frisk policy, which allowed police to stop and search anyone solely on the basis of reasonable suspicion, and who last week vowed to paint a huge Black Lives Matter sign outside President Trump's flagship Trump Tower. I don't know which of these numbers is the worst, because they're all pretty scary. A huge amount of money has been shifted from the NYPD budget, and this will certainly not help with problems. Over the years, NYPD's hard work has helped make New York safer than our other major cities, but now this is changing at an absolutely breathtaking speed. In fact, a British news source now refers to the city as Lawless New York. Two bullet-ridden bodies lay sprawled on blood-stained concrete steps, alongside relatives of the victims are wailing and collapse to the ground. In another part of the city, a gang of youths use spray paint to disable security cameras before robbing a corner store. Later, video footage captures police officers sitting helplessly in their patrol car as a baying crowd hurls glass bottles at them. This is Lawless New York, a city that was once America's glittering crown jewel, but which risks descending into mob rule. Of course, if New York wants to rival Chicago, there are still many ways to go. According to officials, there are more than 100,000 gang members living in Chicago at this point, and violence never stops. Unfortunately, the last few days were particularly bad. During the weekend of July the 4th, at least 67 people were shot with guns in the Windy City. At least 67 people were shot, including 13 fatally, over the Independence Day weekend in Chicago, according to authorities. 9 of the weekend's victims were minors, and 2 children died. Officials told Fox 32 that includes a 14-year-old boy who was among 4 people who were killed in South Side neighborhood, Englewood, on Saturday evening. The victims were at a large gathering on the street at around 11:35 p.m. on South Carpenter Street. 4 males then approached the group and began shooting. Police said, adding that the 14-year-old boy was shot in the back before he was taken to Comer Children's Hospital, where he was later pronounced dead. But instead of blaming criminals, Chicago Sun-Times thinks that funding for police can lead to a better and safer Chicago. Seriously. Do people really believe in such nonsense? Philadelphia is also another big city that has seen a huge increase in violent crime and at the same time seeing police funds cut off. Shootings are up 67%. Victims of armed violence are up 29%. Homicides are up 25%. So of course it makes sense to defund the Philadelphia PD by $19 million. Most Americans desperately want their neighborhood to feel safe, and this may be the only problem that could save Republicans from a potential disaster in the November elections. Currently, most Democrats are extremely hesitant to speak against the violent protests we have seen across the country, and this is a huge mistake. We have witnessed more alarming violence during the political protests over the past few days. For example, protesters in Portland fired bullets and fired fireworks at Portland offices for hours. If Democrats want to win independent voters, they cannot be seen to have experienced such violence. These radical protesters are actually harming their own lawsuits by participating in such complete lawlessness, as this will only help President Trump. The more violence we see, the more the American people will want it to stop. If tens of millions of voters believe that Joe Biden's America is a rebellious, looty and violent America, this could potentially be enough to bring Trump to the top in November. Joe Biden's strong reluctance to call law and order may be the Achilles heel. The way the national elections are won in America is the acquisition of millions of confused people in the middle, and the images of the protests that these confused people are watching on television screens certainly do not help the Democrats. For example, protesters in New York were burning American flags over the weekend. America was never great. Far-left protesters have burned American flags outside Trump Tower and the White House. Video shows the stars and stripes being burned just outside the White House. As the demonstrators chanted, America was never great. The flag burning came in the wake of Donald Trump's Independence Day speech at the White House, in which he condemned the radical left and compared them to terrorists and Nazis. The flag burning was organized by the Revolutionary Communist Party, the Hill reports. Prior to the flag burning, an event was held by Refuse Fascism, which also held protests nationwide on July 4th, calling for the removal of Trump and Vice President Mike Pence from office. As they lit the flag, activists can be heard chanting 1, 2, 3, 4, slavery, genocide and war. 5, 6, 7, 8, America was never great. Does anyone out there actually thinks that such stunts will increase the likelihood of voting for the confused people in the middle for the Democrats? Currently, Trump is far behind in polls, but if these protesters make the main topic of the campaign in the coming months, there may still be a chance to win. But whoever wins in November, we have entered a new era of violence and rebellion in this country. Most of our big cities already look like war zones, and what we have experienced so far is just the beginning. Dear Daily News Report viewers, you can find other videos by clicking on the top right button. We recommend watching, subscribing, and sharing. Thanks in advance. Most of idea, comment, information, and criticism containing in these videos have been created by Daily News Report. Before making any important investment decision, use the information contained in these videos as a starting point for conducting your own research. If you make any investment or legal decision, it is wise to consult an expert before making this decision.